Porter Robinson's 2014 debut album Worlds is an album I have a lot of love and appreciation for. It is probably one of my favorite albums of all time, in fact. The atmospheres and soundscapes Robinson is able to create with EDM without becoming stale or repetitive on that project really stood out to me and showed me the potential of the genre. This album was super ahead of its time and genre defining for the decade to come. As a fan, I was highly anticipating a new project for him, but for years I was left with only a few singles and a side project that left me wanting more. This is when suddenly in early 2020, Porter Robinson dropped the announcement of his sophomore album Nurture along with the single Get Your Wish, and I was pumped. 1 year later with a couple months to set on it, and how do I feel about the project I had such high expectations and hopes for? Let's find out. I'm Sleep, and welcome to Porter Robinson's Nurture. Before going into my thoughts on the album itself, I think this album needs some context. With expectations so high for a new project, Robinson went into a bit of a mental roadblock when trying to follow up his 2014 masterpiece, Worlds. Robinson struggled with expectations he put on himself and got into a bit of a slump for a couple of years, causing various periods where he had sudden outbursts directed towards his previous work. Eventually, Robinson found comfort within himself through the rediscovery of his love of music, along with surrounding himself with people that supported himself emotionally. With this new drive, Robinson created the LP and side project Virtual Self, which would earn him a Grammy nomination. Around after this project's release, Robinson went all in on focusing on the next big project, which would hone in on the themes of love, hardship, and creativity when it comes to creating music. I think these themes are presented and explored in a way I've not seen done before in a music project, period. The organic and soft pianos blend with these glitchy and distorted sound effects in a way that sets up a sound palette that feels like a synthetic grassy field. The opener, Lifelike, starts off with this calming piano that slowly evolves into this meshing of organic instrumentation with these electronic bits. It feels like the start of an animated movie with characters traversing clear blue skies, long and vast grassy hills, along with some scenic ocean cliffs. This sonically eases you into the track Look at the Sky, where for the first time on the record, Porter takes on vocal duties as he sings his ass off with some pitch shifting and layers on it. The track tackles the thought of feeling like you've lost your talent, but kind of balances it with this positive chorus about looking into the future and motivating yourself to create something you're proud of. When I first heard this song prior to the album, I absolutely adored the blaring synths and amazing instrumentation. It's easily one of my favorites off the whole record. However, this song is followed by the more lyrically frustrated track Get Your Wish, in which Robinson expresses the feeling of falling off. He taunts himself with questions like, "Tell me how it felt when you walked on water," and "Did you get your wish?" questioning why he felt so bad about himself artistically when he had already done so much that he wished for. It's a really interesting contrast to the last song. It takes a pretty interesting direction sonically too, with these little drum patterns and simplistic instruments that create this really bare and interesting sound I really like. This is followed up by the piano-based wind tempos, which serves as an interlude for the most part. The way this song evolves is really interesting in my opinion. One of the more interesting parts of the track is when Porter comes with these vocals where he expresses some kind of pain through the way he chops his vocals up, creating this synthetic voice that sounds like it's being hurt. It's kind of disturbing, but more in a sad way. The track musician tackles the struggle of burnout, the act of facing it, and some of the bad ways people approach it. Here, Porter kind of makes fun of his own bad mindset when approaching music, with his voice throughout the song constantly telling him to get a job. Sonically, the track is really lush, too. The way Porter chops up the sample really reminds me of the crazy sample chop Daft Punk pulled off with their classic song One More Time. This track is such a display of the growth and production power Porter is capable of. This leads into the track Do Re Mi Fa Sol La Ti Do, which is a more instrumental track using these more outdoorsy sounds while the simple beat drives the track. The synth changes and the little details on this track really shine and create this really nice upbeat feeling on it. The track Mother immediately follows and takes on a more pop rock approach to the sound of this album. The bass synths layered throughout the track are used in a space that would normally be fulfilled by an electric guitar. Lyrically, the track takes on the perspective of Porter's guilt after realizing realizing how his self-hatred is affecting the ones close to him. It's a pretty interesting track in the album, and it really sticks out to me in a good way. The following track, Dulcith, is probably the most experimental cut on the entire project, and has some of the craziest and most interesting production choices on the project. The stuttery synths and broken drum beat build more and more in this obtuse way, and I fucking love it. The closest comparison I can make when it comes out of the song Changes and Evolves is some of the tracks off of Igloo Ghost's Neowax Bloom project. It's some very, very good stuff. Sweet Time is an atmospheric ballad that takes on the fear of death following finding purpose through someone or something you love. It's a very therapeutic cut, and it's a genuinely really beautiful track. One of my complaints with this track though is it feels like it doesn't evolve as much as some of the other tracks on the album. Far from a bad song though, just probably one of the weaker tracks on the album overall. The gorgeous track and single Mirror follows though, taking on the idea of the cost of being really hard on yourself. The track has this interesting dynamic where there's this voice that comes in with words of encouragement and hope, while most of the track is Robinson being very self-critical. Sonically, this track is immaculate. I love the chorus on the song because it's genuinely one of those songs I can listen to when I'm going through a hard time. Easily one of the best songs here. Easily. The track Something Comforting is a well-titled single and kind of encapsulates a lot of the themes and lyrical material of this album overall. Porter expresses his want for comfort in his artistic career and talks about how he feels like he's doing something wrong. Lyrics such as "'cause getting made you want more" and "hoping made you hope more" really push this narrative. Sonically, the track is backed by these almost N64-like guitar synths, which transition into this bumping and loud instrumental drop that just sounds gorgeous. These strings and little vocals at the end of each drop are beautiful as well. The slow guitar-backed love ballad Blossom is an adorable and heartwarming little stop in the album. It's a more positive track in which Porter finds joy in making someone he loves happy. It's a pretty personal track and feels at home on an album like this. The track Unfold is probably one of my favorite songs from 2021 and is probably one of my favorite electronic songs, period. On this penultimate track, Porter tackles the uncertainty of moving forward and the almost world-bearing stress caused by feeling in the shadow of his past. This is emphasized by this amazing and soaring chorus. The sound of this track can best be explained by emphasizing what I said earlier. If the rest of this album sounds like a synthetic forest, this track sounds like the simulation this forest is in, breaking in this grand way. It's such a gorgeous fucking track and easily my favorite on the album. The final track, Trying to Feel Alive, is this great conclusion where Porter tries to get a sense of his emotions through the album and grow as a person. The line, "You climbed a mountain, are you satisfied?" really encapsulates the idea of this song. Here Porter doesn't look for that satisfaction, but instead looks forward and tries to move on. The endlessness of music is no longer emptiness to Robinson, but this reason to keep going. He wants to keep going and learn as a person, and honestly, that's a great way of looking at it. This, along with this almost end credits feel to the sound of this track, really works as a conclusion to what might possibly be my favorite album of all time. Overall, this album exceeded my expectations and really became something I love. It's such an emotional and beautiful and raw project, and it delivers on everything that makes Robinson a great artist. Easily my favorite album from 2021 so far, and I look forward to seeing how Porter Robinson grows as an artist in the future. Thank you all for joining me on this amazing review. This is Sleep, and I'm out. See ya!